Good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Tanya Gonzalez, and I am a professor in the Department of English and Faculty Senate President. Welcome to KSUnite, Moving Forward Together. I want to begin this gathering with a land acknowledgement, recognizing our connection to Indigenous lands, peoples, and cultures, past, present, and future. Alongside our 1863 legacy as the U.S.'s first operational land-grant university, we must acknowledge that Kansas State University stands on the treaty lands of the Kaw Nation. Today, there are four federally recognized tribes in Kansas: the Kickapoo, Prairie Band Potawatomi, Sac and Fox, and the Iowa Tribe of Kansas and Nebraska. And finally, we acknowledge K-State's commitment to the future success of Indigenous cultures and peoples through our university mission of education, service, and outreach. With this, I would like to introduce Kansas State University's 14th president, Richard B. Meyers.
Well, good afternoon, and welcome to KSUnite 2019. Thank you, Tanya, for that introduction. Really appreciate that. We welcome all students, faculty, staff, alumni, community leaders, and visitors. We're honored that each and every one of you are here with us today. KSUnite is about the affirmation and celebration of our commitment to stand united in valuing and respecting human diversity. We are fortunate to have and to attract people of many backgrounds, race, ethnicity, nationalities, gender identities, sexual preferences, religion, rural and urban backgrounds, political views, and so much more. When we coalesce around our unique attributes, we become a stronger, more vibrant institution, an institution that contributes to and supports a healthy, productive society. Just as it takes many individual notes to compose a beautiful song or multiple plays to win a game at K-State, for instance, last weekend, for instance, last night, for instance, and we have a lot of student athletes with us today as well, so thank you. Every individual contributes to the overall learning experience, an enriching experience that has an impact over a lifetime that will surely follow many paths through multiple cultures and many parts of the world. We started this KSUnite movement 3 years ago at a time when unrest around the nation and the world challenged us right here at K-State. We chose not to let that unrest take over our principles and our values, to not define us. We chose KSUnite as a visible pledge and an act of engagement to demonstrate our commitment to inclusiveness and a welcoming environment for all. Today's theme is symbolic of where we are today, and that is moving forward together. So, do we have it all figured out? Is everything running smoothly? We all know the answer. No, of course not. But we have a lot to be proud of, and we continue and want to continue to make progress because the commitment of everyone here today. If we all commit to make progress, we will be getting better day by day. We have held fast to our principles of community, which are fully endorsed by Provost Tabor and myself, as well as the university's governance bodies, including the Student Governing Association, the Graduate Student Council, Faculty Senate, university support staff, and we affirm the inherent dignity and value of every person, and we stand united against all forms of discrimination. We are 2 years into the organizational change that created the position of Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer, reporting directly to me as president, and that's Bryan Sandler. Where's Bryan? Bryan, and so Bryan's been here about a year and a half. And he's understaffed, probably underloved, but Bryan, we thank you for you and all the folks that had anything to do with organizing our time here today. Thank you so much. And along with Bryan, we also brought on board our Associate Vice President for Student Life of Diversity and Multicultural Student Affairs, Adrian Rodriguez. Adrian, where are you? So, yeah, give it up for Adrian. So we got just two of the many leaders that try to make this university a better place. Through their efforts, we are developing programs and training to amplify our past efforts and further increase the awareness and the value of including diversity of ideas, thoughts, ethnicity, and multiple cultures into our lives. Last year at this time, we announced significant progress in our plans for a multicultural student center on campus. And last spring, we unveiled the site of the Morris Family Multicultural Student Center just to the east of the Student Union. If you came in from the east today, I mean, dirt's moving, and that's a great thing. When I got here in 2016, it was an idea. People felt passionate about it. We put a team together, 28-member project action team, including students, faculty, staff, alumni, the KSU Foundation, and community representatives. The new facility will include gathering and meeting spaces, a kitchen, office spaces, prayer meditation room, and other core support spaces. As I said, construction has begun, and we look forward to completion and dedication of this Morris Family Multicultural Student Center next fall in August. That's our plan, and we're going to keep them on track, we hope. Princeton's Review's 2020 edition of Best 385 Colleges publication cited K-State for numerous enviable rankings, including number 2 in the nation for best quality of life and great relationship with the surrounding town. We were number 3 for happiest students. Just after midterms, don't want to take the survey right now, but wait till they're out of school. These are student surveys. They're not administrators, they're not faculty, they're student surveys that tell people what they think about their alma mater. What students mentioned in these surveys in the remarks were that K-State was helpful, polite, and friendly nature of the student body and those on campus that serve our students, as well as our diverse campus life activities. In September, K-State earned national recognition as one of the top higher education institutes for diversity and inclusion. Insight into Diversity magazine awarded the university with the 2019 Higher Education Excellence in Diversity, or HEED Award. K-State's received this award every year since 2014 and is one of only 25 schools across the nation to receive this award in each of the last 6 years. We are the only Kansas school to receive this award in 2019. Well, that's your work. That's not administrators doing that work. That's all of your work to make this place, and then we scoop all the good work up and report it. So it's everything. We don't take credit for this. You take credit for this. That's what it's about. We're looking forward to planning another university-wide climate survey and have a team working on the details. The report from our last climate survey was completed in 2015, and numerous improvements were made throughout the university based on feedback and recommendations that came out of that survey. The next survey will be centered on interactions and engagement that give students, faculty, and staff a sense of belonging, and we'll explore how the university is positioned physically and organizationally to support diverse preferences and needs. Bryan Sandler, Chief Diversity Inclusion Officer, and Jay Stevens. Jay Stevens, who is Vice President for Human Capital Services, are leading the charge to move this survey forward. You will hear more about it after the first of the year, and with each new survey, we're going to learn some new things, and then we'll take to making continuous improvement based on those results. So stand by for that. If you have a chance to take the survey, this is just a plea. Please do it. The more people we have taking it, the better idea we're going to have of what we need to fix. Well, there's always more that can be done, but I'm proud of what we have accomplished up to date and what each of you have accomplished through a long and rich history of valuing diversity. Today, through KSUnite 2019, we come together again to reaffirm our commitment to stand united in valuing and respecting our differences. Please engage in discussion this afternoon, listen for diversity in the messages, and take advantage of learning something new and perhaps understanding another point of view, all what this afternoon is about. Our diversity makes us all stronger. Our diversity makes us all stronger, makes this university stronger. And I'm so proud of what you all have accomplished in this last year. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Chuck Tabor. Chuck is the provost, meaning Chief Academic Officer, and Executive Vice President. Chuck, over to you.
Thank you, President Meyers. Kansas State University is a powerful engine of opportunity. Our land-grant mission puts us at the center of social mobility everywhere in the world, including here at Kansas. But this opportunity is not equally or justly distributed anywhere in the world or here at K-State. As a boy, growing up in West and Central Africa, I was immersed in staggering inequality. This led me to ask a lot of questions that have been very important in my life and in my career path. In fact, I'm really standing here today because of these questions. Questions like, why do we have this inequality? Who or what is responsible? How can we create a more just world? Perhaps most important for me, what is my responsibility in this personally? In a world where opportunities are not justly distributed, is there special responsibility for those who are more fortunate than others? Do we have a special responsibility if we have privileges? You've probably heard this classic quote from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., but I have to give this quote to you because it is, I think, one of the most powerful statements that Dr. King ever made. He said, "Life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others?" I think that is at the core of why we're here today. For me, this question is most acute for those of us who have been privileged in life, who have had opportunities that others have not had. It's important to recognize and to acknowledge that we have inequalities of opportunities here at K-State. We have students who struggle to make ends meet. We have students and staff facing food insecurity. We have community members whose sexuality or gender identities leave them on the outside, feeling as if they're looking through a window at the K-State family. We don't have enough opportunities for students, staff, or faculty of color. And this is a national problem that persists 60 years after civil rights. In many disciplines, there are still barriers to the advancement for women. As President Meyers said, we've made tremendous progress on many of these things, but we still have persistent inequalities in opportunity. There's many important ways that we can work from the administrative side to be more equitable as a university, and we are fully committed to doing what we can. Throughout the strategic enrollment management and student success initiatives, we're trying to put in place things that will address some of these problems. But my primary message to you today is much more personal. It comes from my own personal journey. I believe that we have an important opportunity to make real progress on becoming a more inclusive, more equitable university community. I believe that all of us, each of us, can contribute to a more just world and a more inclusive campus by accepting personal responsibility to help others in our community who need help. I believe that the greatest progress on creating a more equitable and inclusive campus community will be made at the individual personal level. I'm committed to doing everything I can to extend the incredible opportunities at our university more equitably to all members of our community, to support social mobility through the opportunities we offer, to encourage an educational environment that respects individual differences and emphasizes personal development and opportunity, to becoming that powerful engine of opportunity that we can be. Thank you. It's now my great pleasure to introduce Regent Cheryl Harrison Lee, who's going to make a few remarks. Regent Harrison Lee was appointed to the Board of Regents this year by Governor Laura Kelly. She brings a wealth of experience that's going to be incredibly valuable to the board and to the universities. I've had the pleasure of having a number of really powerful conversations with Regent Harrison Lee, and I know that she understands the opportunities that universities offer to our communities and the importance of extending those opportunities to all members of our communities. Please welcome Regent Harrison Lee.
President Meyers, students, faculty, staff, alumni, and guests. Greetings on behalf of the Kansas Board of Regents. I'm thrilled to join you today for the third annual KSUnite event. KSUnite provides a wonderful opportunity to reaffirm values of inclusion and respect for one another. Kansas State University and all institutions of higher education are called upon to serve a diverse group of students and create a welcoming environment for all faculty and staff. We should celebrate the differences and recognize that they serve as an opportunity to broaden our horizons and enrich our lives and learn from each other. Of course, diversity alone does not guarantee inclusion and respect. We cannot take for granted that the campus and environment is welcoming to all. Instead, we must work diligently to ensure that the members of this community feel respected, to correct any personal or collective shortcomings, and to show compassion for each other every day. KSUnite is vital because it gives us an opportunity to have important conversations about what we can do to foster inclusiveness. It facilitates meaningful dialogue about how we can support each member of the K-State family. And finally, it is a powerful reminder that in diversity is strength. I commend all of you today for participating in this event, and for your desire to commit to the values of the Kansas State University, a special place. And as the day ends and you reflect back, I hope that you gain a greater appreciation for the wonderful diversity on this campus, and that you are inspired to keep embracing the goals of the KSUnite movement, not just during your time here on the campus, but as you go out as a K-State alumni for the rest of your lives. Thank you, Dr. Samuel, for the work that you're doing in this area. Thank you, President Meyers, and the rest of the leadership at the university for supporting the effort, and best wishes for a successful event. And this time, I have the opportunity to introduce your student body president, Jansen Penny.
Thank you very much for that. Hello, my name is Jansen Penny, and I'm a senior studying industrial engineering from Burlington, Colorado. First and foremost, thank you very much for showing your support and your solitude in taking the next steps towards understanding today. Whether you're a member of a marginalized identity and have experienced pain and frustration during your time here at K-State, or you're an ally for those disadvantaged groups, or you're purely curious about taking your first step into intercultural development, your presence is valued, and you do have a part to play here at Kansas State University. I want to share a little bit about my experience here at K-State and how I hope we can leverage our culmination of privilege to make our community a more welcoming and inclusive environment for all. Aforementioned, I'm from a small farming ranching community in eastern Colorado, and that being said, I grew up in a pretty homogenous community. All my friends looked like me, all of my teachers looked like me, and my mindset was seldomly challenged. And unknowingly to myself, when I came to K-State, all of this was soon about to change. As a first-generation college student, I did not know what to expect when coming to college. Unlike most people, a large drawing factor for me to come here to K-State was so that I didn't go to where a lot of my friends went back in Colorado. And here I was, a farm boy, coming to the metropolis, big city of Manhattan, Kansas. Although I was quickly corrected by some of my newfound friends here that this was in fact not a big city, the Manhattan community was still a huge adjustment. The mindsets of my friends were no longer largely homogenous to my own, and on a daily basis, I interacted with others who didn't look like myself, who didn't share the same sexual identity, religion, and who plainly did not think the same way that I did. And this was the first time that I also got to experience my own privilege, and even more so, the first time I recognized it. I now acknowledge what privileges are granted to me as a straight white male, and whether acknowledged or not, this is inherent in many individuals here today. Does this mean I haven't struggled? Absolutely not. Does this mean I have an innate responsibility to my friends and colleagues to take an initiative in advancing a diverse, equitable, and inclusive community? I sure think so. Knowing what is innate to you is the first step in being able to be a change maker and thought leader in interculturalism in this community. And next comes leveraging this privilege. K-State not only provides the opportunity to bring this to realization, but also empowers us to be an advocate, to be that ally. We all have an opportunity on a daily basis to be a change maker. So what does this really look like? Spending time with groups you greatly disagree with. Listen, intentionally listening to the stories of others, inviting people into conversations, creating a buzz around issues that need to be discussed that you don't think would be discussed otherwise, being cognizant of and pointing out potential gender biases in committees and classrooms, and just to not be afraid to wield your privilege to those who are marginalized. And lastly, just like I did on campus 3 years ago, to be comfortable walking into a space where you know absolutely nobody. Our time at K-State goes far beyond our degree or our place of work. We can, and I'm confident we will, use this time to create a community that accepts and enriches the talents and voices of all, regardless of race, color, religion, sexual orientation, gender identity, and it can bring that self-actualization to our own intercultural development. Thank you for your time, attention, and investment in advancing our Wildcat community. And lastly, I want us to leave us on one note. To let us not be defined by the presence of our privilege, but rather how we leverage our voice and actions to make K-State a family worth calling your own. Thank you. And next, would you please join me in welcoming our next speaker, Lindsey Gutierrez.
When I started K-State fall 2017, I reached out to the Student Access Center, and since day one, they have been extremely accommodating. The first time I entered their office, I was timid, and I hid behind my service dog, only muttering words in response to questions. This last time I entered the Student Access Center, it was without my dog, and I did a lot of talking. When I have gone to the testing center to take my exams these last few years, the staff that works there have been kind and always say hello. It seems like they genuinely care for the students' well-beings. When students and faculty ask, "How are you doing?" it would annoy me, and I would think, why are they pretending to care? And then I would try to avoid any awkward situation. Throughout the past couple of years, I have noticed that the staff and faculty really do care. And when they ask, "How are you?" I do engage in conversation. I joined the Army at 17, with my first deployment right before my 19th birthday. I stayed in as a small arms repairman for nearly a decade with a total of 3 deployments before I decided it was time to get out of the service. Throughout my military career, I suffered in silence like most soldiers do when faced with challenging moments that eat at you mentally and they never leave your mind. I felt I couldn't trust those around me, and I didn't know how to express my emotions appropriately. Suicide was constantly on my mind until one day I attempted my thoughts and ended up in a mental institution in another country surrounded by other soldiers who aren't crazy, but we just didn't know how to express our anxiety and our depression. I buried my pain deep inside of me and ignored my pain for years. That is until I transitioned to the civilian life. I went from being told what to do and how to do it, to when and where to be, to a civilian going to school. I now had more time to think about my past pain, and I became depressed, and it didn't help that I felt so dumb around all the fresh minds straight out of high school. I started to put myself down, and I withdrew myself from avoiding socialization. I decided I needed to change. I started seeking help, and I adopted Bruce Wayne, my service dog. He made it easier for me to go out in public and face the world. Thankfully, my husband started K-State at the same time. He made it easier for me to open up and talk to others. I would probably be stuck in a corner still if he didn't help guide me. He would encourage me to talk to people by having me go to the Veterans Center every day. It took about a year for me to really open up, but I started to talk to the other veterans, non-traditional students, without anxiety, and eventually branching out and talking to others. About a year and a half ago, I started to venture out without my service dog, until one day I didn't need him and I didn't hide behind him anymore. I am not 100%. I am working on myself to be a better me. Sometimes I need a little budge, and on occasion, I will revert back to my old self. And I thank the Care Center for being a resource that I can utilize. They have helped me seek counseling, and if I just want to pop in and talk, they're there to lend an ear. My experience with K-State was not great, and that was my doing. I wasn't open, and I kept quiet. Everything and everyone bothered me. Since realizing that I was the problem, my experience has been great. I even have a teacher who I look up to, and she has noticed and has told me several times how I've grown as an individual since being here. And that's it. I would like to introduce Francisco Cardoza.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Hello. And thank you for being here today to share this time together as a community and reinforce that sense of family K-State is known for. Today, I will share my experience at the first KSUnite, how I personally felt going to this third KSUnite, and some of the work that has been done and that remains. I want to take you all back in time with me to 2017. Despacito was fresh on the radio, and Jordan Peele shook the US with his movie debut, Get Out. Donald Trump had just been inaugurated as president, and there was a solar eclipse. It was an interesting time, not a simple one. I was a first-generation Hispanic sophomore in a predominantly white institution following the 2016 election. K-State was going through its own rough patch of racially targeted incidents that year. For a moment, it felt like each week another incident would happen, and it was sadly starting to become a norm. Then one day, the impossible happened. K-State canceled classes. There can be a sheet of ice and negative 10 degrees with a wind chill that burns your face off, but you can bet we will still have classes that day. Okay. K-State took a stance that day by deciding to cancel classes and allowing everyone the opportunity to get together in the front lawn of Anderson Hall to address the risks and issues, to stand against hate. For those of you who are there, I want you to go back to that day, to that specific moment. For everyone who was not there, I'm going to try my best to explain it through what I saw and what I felt that moment. It was a cool, cloudy day. I walked up with everyone from the Leadership Studies building, and you could see a huge number of people just walking up together. Once we got to the lawn of Anderson Hall, I see a sea of purple all around me. Of all the speakers, the one that I remember to this day is Darrell Reese. He was a Black Student Union president at the time, and it stood out to me because here is the president of one of the biggest multicultural student organizations on campus, reinforcing the sense of family at K-State, and how there's a lot of work to be done going forward. I felt inspired, and he's a big reason why I said yes to speaking to you all today. I do have to admit that I don't feel the same way about KSUnite as I did that first time. For what KSUnite is trying to stand for, it must be more. It must be more than just a box K-State is checking each year, and that is how I was starting to feel leading up till today. I know many other students on campus are having similar feelings. I was questioning speaking at this event due to these recent feelings. That the students who should be here are not. That KSUnite is only one day out of the year. I decided to follow through with speaking, though, because I want to represent my community. And if I don't speak how I feel, who will? I have the great honor this year to be president of HALO, the Hispanic American Leadership Organization. I've been a member since my freshman year and have always felt at home there. Being around hard-working students who look like me, have similar life struggles like me, and only want the best future for themselves and their families. I am proud to finally be able to apply everything I've learned through the State School of Leadership Studies to an organization that means so much to me and my community. The mission in Leadership Studies is developing knowledgeable, ethical, caring, inclusive leaders for a diverse and changing world. And I try to live by this mission every day with everything I do, including HALO. This semester, the leadership from HALO, LULAC, which stands for the League of United Latin American Citizens, and SHEP, the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers, decided it was time to truly bring our Hispanic and Latinx community together. During Hispanic Heritage Month, we decided to combine our meetings and focus on important topics for our community, preparing our members for the career fair, talk about the importance of voting, and celebrating the end of Hispanic Heritage Month with a potluck. We call these events United Meetings. Being at K-State for almost 4 years now, I have never seen our organizations collaborate like this before, and I am very thankful for the leadership of LULAC and SHEP to have helped make this amazing month of events possible for our members. This is part of the work that Darrell was talking about, and of course, there's more work to do. I am always thinking about our HALO members and Hispanic and Latinx students on campus in general. I am worried about them for next year's election that occurs during the school year. I remember being a freshman at K-State and going through my first election on campus and how scary of a time that was. I will be graduating in May, and I won't be here on campus to help firsthand. I will be experiencing the election and its results at my own workplace. I just want to ask you all to know how important it will be to vote and how everyone on campus will be affected by the results. Not only that, but how important it is how our Hispanic and Latinx and multicultural communities solve the issue of division between us. There's even division within the same ethnicity group. I sadly see this in our own Hispanic and Latinx community. We are already the minorities on campus. We shouldn't be dividing people. We shouldn't be dividing ourselves up as well. Although, I also understand that feeling of wanting to feel comfortable and around people who understand you without you having to explain yourself all the time. It's a difficult task and one that will take time. We should not wait until the Multicultural Student Center is built next year, though to start solving these issues, it is our work to do now. While we all have been fortunate without the same turbulent series of racial incidents K-State had in 2017, that does not mean everything is perfect. We should use this time to truly come together and continue to build family with one another. At the first KSUnite, Darrell said, let's get to work. 2 years later, I say now, let's work harder. Thank you. I'm very happy to introduce Gloria Mutiri, Junior in Mass Communications.
Hello, everyone. My name is Gloria Mutiri. I'm a student athlete here at Kansas State University. I play volleyball, and I major in broadcast journalism. I was born in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and my parents are from the Democratic of Congo on the Kinshasa side. We moved a lot growing up. I lived in Delaware, I lived in Tennessee, and the most common denominator of all these places is that there was not a lot of diversity. And I went to private schools, I went to public schools, and preparatory schools, and I was usually the only black girl in most of these classes. Everyone's parents drove the same Range Rover. Everybody played soccer together, and everybody had someone who looked like them, except for me. And the kids always made me feel so different. While everyone was bringing Lunchables and cosmic brownies to school, I brought my fufu and my stew and my pondu and rice, and the kids would always laugh and be like, that smells so bad, and make fun of it. And they used to make fun of the way that my hair was so nappy because everybody had nice hair that would swish back and forth. And I never got to participate in the fake marriage games that kids would play at recess because none of the white guys ever wanted to be with a black girl. And so I used to always have to be the wedding planner. And my classmates would joke about my parents' accents and what they would wear to come pick me up from school. And I'd heard microaggressive comments like this all my life, and I never considered it to be racist or for it to be evil-natured. I just assumed that that's the way that things were, and that I was odd, and that I was the oddball, and that nobody wanted to try my food, nobody wanted to find out why my hair was like how it was, and no one wanted to try to understand my parents. At home, we would listen to Congolese music, we would dance to Congolese music, eat Congolese food, and dress in our kikwembes, but my parents didn't know how to help me because they were African and they didn't really know what it's like to be black in America. Racism was such a confusing concept to them. And so after years of feeling like an outcast, I did what you're never supposed to do. I assimilated because I wanted to fit in so badly. So I got weaves so I could have a nice ponytail, and I started bringing my lunch to school. And I started to care about all the topics that everybody else cared about. And that didn't help because then I became the black girl that acts white, and I became made fun of for not being black enough, and that hurt also. A lot of that changed though in college for me because I met one of my closest friends, Abigail Archibong, and she had African parents just like me, and we were both firstborn in America, and we grew up living the same kind of lifestyle. The difference between us is that she took so much pride in her culture, and that's the first time I'd experienced anything like that in my life. And so I began to change my mindset and shift my perspective. I spent a lot of time with my friends from Black Student Union and from African Student Union, and I stopped feeling so attacked for my culture, and I just began to embrace it. And I don't want to hide it anymore, and I don't want to assimilate anymore, because I'm really proud of who I am. I'm proud to be a child of the Congo, and I'm proud to be in a race that has overcome so many setbacks and so much suppression. I'm grateful to be surrounded by people who think that what makes me different is pretty cool. For the people in your workplace and that are around you, that are in your daily lives, I wish you would help them to not feel so alienated sometimes. With all the noise in the world, especially this harsh racial climate that we're living in, everybody needs a place to call home. Whether you're black, white, Native American, Chinese, German, Russian, British, we all need a safe place that we can express who we are. K-State prides itself in being a family atmosphere, but for this place to become home, we have a lot of work to do. Inclusion and respect must be a standard, and we need to help each other break barriers. Home is a place where we can sit down and have really tough and really awkward conversations with each other, and where everyone can have a seat at the table and everyone can really talk about how they feel without feeling judged. Minorities, I wish that you would learn to love yourself, and what makes you different is so beautiful. And majority, I wish that you would spot the difference around you. I wish that you would see color and embrace it, and I wish that you would celebrate it. Educate yourself around about the cultures around you, and if we can do that, then we can make K-State home to a beautiful and diverse family. Thank you. Thank you. I would now like to introduce Mohammed Khan, a junior in biology.
Alhamdulillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May peace and blessings be upon you. I have 3 minutes to share my experience as a Muslim in the United States and the world today with you guys. So for the next 3 minutes, I want you guys to forget everything else and view me solely as a Muslim. And I know that many of you have different perspective of what a Muslim is. I actually ask you to reduce my identity to my religion because to me, that is the single most important aspect of my identity and the one I identify the most with. Not my country, not my color, not the caste, not the place I grew up in, but my religion, Islam. Writing this speech, I had an idea. Of starting out by loudly saying Allahu Akbar. But a dear friend urged me not to, as she deemed it was not very safe. Yes. Anyway, let's start out from the very first day that I had arrived in the United States. After a seemingly endless flight of 13 hours, all the way from Dubai to JFK in New York, and then waiting in the immigration line for about 2 hours, I finally got to the immigration counter, right? And as I approached with a big smile on my face, to seem less terrorizing, well, look at me. So the officer looked at me and smiled, and it was good. So my parents had instructed me that be cooperative. They were scared I was coming to the United States with a beard on my face. So after going through the usual procedures, I was asked to head back to another room for further questioning. Yeah, so just the usual stuff, like whether or not I know how to make a bomb. the usual stuff. So whether or not I know how to make a bomb, or whether or not I was part of, or am, or were a part of any terrorist organizations back home. Yes, I'm really not kidding about this. The first actual interaction I had with a person in the United States involved such questions. And I just laughed and said no, like it did not matter. And it really did not, because by that time it had become more hilarious than offensive to me, because I had been used to such interrogations all my life. And I knew it was not the first one or the last. So fast forward to starting school here at Kansas State University, right? So my first day here, I felt the inclusiveness. I felt people were welcoming, and they were really, so it was like home. So for us, from Pakistan or from the Middle East or from India, anywhere, any part of that world, so it's really hospitable, right? So we are really close with family, we're really close with people. So in my freshman year, I had a sociology class, and it was scheduled at the time of one of my 5 daily prayers. The call to which includes something called the adhan. And it starts by the words, Allahu Akbar. So which apparently is an alarm for something about to happen around the world. So we were just sitting there listening to the lecture, and the azan went off. And the students around me, the students, my followers, they actually got frightened. They were like, oh, they actually got frightened and, made a sound. And I actually apologized to them. And as I did, I realized I did not apologize for disturbing the class or, creating a nuisance. I apologized for them being frightened of a word that is so holy to 1.3 billion people in the world. So friends, I'm often very nervous giving speeches, right? I do not like big crowds. I'm nervous right now, clenching. But I really felt as a Muslim, it was my duty to go out and be an ambassador to my religion. Because I have to let people know what Muslims go through every day. If not me, someone else, somewhere else, in some part of the world, a woman wearing a hijab, a guy with his trousers above the ankle and a beard on his face. So when I approached Dr. Samuels for this opportunity to share with you guys, it was because I literally felt a burden on me, a burden that urged me to go out and be an ambassador to my religion, to be a force, however insignificant, to try and change the perceptions about Muslims and share what it is like to be one. These incidents I have shared are a few of many, and they will not stop anytime soon. However, I urge you, my fellow students, the youth, the future of this country and the world, to try and be more accepting and open yourself to new experiences. Go out and interact with different cultures and religions. Do not take the word of the media for it, or the president, for that matter. Do not let stereotypes cloud you and allow hatred to grow. Wherever you see me around campus, I would love to talk about Islam and tell you as best as I can, being a Muslim. And if you're not comfortable with that, you can visit the Islamic Center of Manhattan any Friday of the year at 12:30 p.m. And we are also having an open house on Sunday that will run from 11 to 3. And finally, I would like to raise one last concern, a concern that I have grown to know that not a lot of people in the United States or the world know about it. I have talked to my professors who major in those fields, who teach those fields, geopolitics and geography, and they do not know of the situation that is going on around the world. One, and it is a matter that threatens humanity as a whole. And it is, for me, it is, from how I view it, it is a direct repetition of history. It is that of the imprisonment of Kashmiri Muslims in India, the persecution of Uyghur Muslims in China, the ethnic cleansing and genocide of Rohingya Muslims, and all this solely on the basis of the religion these people follow. Work to learn more about their situations, and work to raise awareness and their support, as they are our brothers in humanity. Finally, I would like to conclude with a verse from the Holy Quran. إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. Indeed, Allah orders justice and good conduct and giving to relatives, and forbids immorality and bad conduct and oppression. He admonishes you that perhaps you will be reminded. I would like to thank everyone for this opportunity, and every one of you for being here and taking time to actually care about diversity and inclusiveness and learning about cultures. Thank you so much. I would like to call on stage Paulina Nations.
My name is Paulina Nations, and I'm a senior here at K-State studying social work and gender, women, and sexuality studies. And I'm here to talk about sexual violence, so please practice self-care during this time. My life has been impacted by sexual violence, but look around. There are others here in this room that have their own stories too, and they matter. Sexual violence is about power and control. It's about each act being committed by someone who exerts their privilege and power over another person. For me, it was someone I trusted. It was someone I cared about. It was my boyfriend. I never thought it was going to happen to me, but it did. For others, it might be someone that they met in a class. It might be someone they met on a date, someone they met at a bar in Aggieville, at a party. Sexual violence impacts all people. It doesn't discriminate. It happens to men, women, members of the LGBTQ community. It happens to people that are black, that are white, that are brown. Here at Kansas State, as a victim and survivor of sexual violence, I should feel safe walking on campus. Whether I'm in Aggieville or out with friends, I should not worry about somebody violating me, somebody degrading me in the worst possible way. I should be believed. I should be heard. I should trust the K-State family. But for many here, that's not true. See, many survivors, they don't feel heard, They don't feel that their story is believed. They feel ashamed, and in fact, I remember when I reported the questions that I got thrown back at me, the victim blaming that I saw. Well, what were you wearing? What were you doing out late? Why'd you put yourself in that situation? Oh, were you drinking? Oh, you must have wanted it then. Well, why didn't you report it? Only 2 to 10% of all sexual assault reports are false allegations. And as students, staff members, administrators, alumni, and professors, we must call to attention the ways in which rape culture and silence affects survivors here at K-State. We all have a responsibility to stand up, to speak out. Now, that doesn't mean you have to share your story like I am, but that could mean just listening to somebody, supporting a friend. That could mean intervening in a situation where someone's put in harm's way. The K-State community principles state, we strive to affirm the inherent dignity and value of every person and strive to maintain an atmosphere of respect and justice. To the K-State communities, I challenge you, we can do better. While this is an ideal, we have a lot of work to do when it comes to supporting survivors or victims of sexual violence. So educate yourself. Go to a Wildcat Make a Pact session. Learn how to be a pro-social bystander. Write a survivor love letter. Wear the color teal and purple for survivors of sexual assault and domestic violence. But most importantly, believe survivors. Because family is not always a safe place, but we can make it that way. So I'm saying no more to sexual assault and rape culture here at K-State. Will you? Our keynote speaker today is Judge Maritza Segura. Judge Segura graduated from Kansas State University in 1984. Judge Segura received her JD from Washburn Law School in 1988, and she worked for the North Central Regional Public Defender Office in Junction City from 1988 to 2004. She was the Chief Public Defender from 1997 to 2004 when she was appointed to the position of District Magistrate Judge for the 8th Judicial District sitting in Junction City. Governor Sebelius appointed her as a District Court Judge for the 8th Judicial District in January of 2007. Judge Segura was the first woman to ever sit at a District Court Judge in the 8th Judicial District and was the first Latina ever named as a District Court Judge in the state of Kansas. Judge Segura sat on several committees, including the Supreme Court, Judicial Education Advisory Committee, the Joint Bench and Bar Conference Planning Committee, and served on the board of National Association of Women Judges. She was also appointed by the Kansas Supreme Court to the Kansas Judicial Council when she served from 2011 to 2009 and chaired various committees formed by that council. Judge Segura is a recipient of the governor's 2008 Martin Luther King Jr. Leadership Award. She was named a 2010 Alumni Fellow for the Kansas State University's College of Arts and Sciences, and in 2012 was awarded the Kansas District Judges Association Community Outreach and Education Award. Judge Segura retired from the district court in 2019, although she continues to hear a case on an appointed basis. It's my pleasure to introduce Judge Maritza Segura.
Thank you. I want to thank President Richard Meyers and Dr. Bryan Sandler for inviting me here today to be with you. And I also want to thank everybody here for participating in this event and for coming forward. I can't tell you what an honor it is for me to be here. I was just, I'm so touched to hear all the stories that are coming, and it's kind of sad that from 1984, when I graduated from here, a lot of those same things are still happening. Those are things that I faced while I was here and things that I heard about when I was here. But obviously with things like this, getting together the campus, the family at K-State and coming forward, this is such a big step in eroding that type of discrimination and those types of barriers. You guys are doing a phenomenal thing by having this. And thank you for allowing me to be part of this and for participating in this. As you've already been told, my name is Maritza Segura. I graduated from Kansas State University in 1984, such a long time ago. This young man said back in 2017, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm back, way back. So, and then I went to law school at Washburn, and I graduated there in 1988. I retired as a district court judge in January of this year, and I want to share a little bit with you about my path to becoming a district court judge and the impact of me being a woman and a Latina and the impact that I had on the community that I served. After I graduated from law school, I was employed with the North Central Regional Public Defender's Office in Junction City. And back in 1988, there were not a lot of women that were practicing criminal defense law, even in this area. Riley County was one of the counties that I worked in. And I believe that I was the first person of color that had been hired by the office that I worked for. And let me tell you how much things have changed and have not changed. When I was hired at the public defender's office, my then boss went and told one of the judges there that he was hiring me. And that judge told him that he should not hire me because a woman could not do that type of work and would probably just whine. So fast forward 16 years, and I'm still at the public defender's office, but I'm then the chief of the public defender office then. And there was a, thank you. And I have to tell you, I think that judge was very sorry for the comments that he made. He sure had to put up with me for a long time. So fast forward, and I'm there, and a newly created position by the legislature had opened up for a magistrate judge sitting in Geary County, which is in the 8th Judicial District. And I thought, okay, I'm going to apply for that. And I put my name in, and I was selected for the position. 3 years later, then Governor Sebelius appointed me to the district court bench for, again, sitting in the 8th Judicial District. Those two appointments were significant, not only for me, but I think also for my community, for a couple of reasons. Before my selection as a magistrate judge in the 8th Judicial District, no woman or person of color had ever been seated as a judge in the history of the state of Kansas in that judicial district. When I was later appointed in 2007 to the district court bench, I was the first Latina in the state of Kansas to have been named to the district court. So what difference did it make having me, a Puerto Rican woman, seated on a bench that had previously been occupied only by white males? I think that almost everyone in the legal community agrees that the judiciary better serves its community when it's a reflection of that community. And here's a few ways in which I believe my appointment made an impact on the 8th Judicial District. First, and I'll come around to this, but I'm fluent in Spanish. And prior to me being on the bench, we didn't have any judges that were fluent in anything but English. And when a person that was Spanish speaking would appear in court, if we did not have a interpreter available, that person's case would either be moved to a later point in time, or they were told the information about the case in English, knowing full well that this person probably would not understand what was being told to them about their case. So when I got there, I was able to tell that person in Spanish. Now, if they spoke French or Chinese or something else, I was not able to help, but I was able then to tell the Spanish-speaking litigants, if it was a criminal case, what their charges were, when they had to appear back in court, what conditions of release were, if it was some other type of case, what the case was about. And again, two really important things: when they had to be back in court and if there were any conditions on that release. Because if I didn't tell them, they wouldn't know until we had an interpreter available, or they were put in a position where they could violate that release, have that release revoked, potentially have new criminal charges or criminal charges filed against them. When I was using a Spanish-speaking interpreter, if they were not doing a good job and were not correctly interpreting what was being said in court, I had the ability, because I'm fluent in Spanish, to stop the proceedings. And thankfully, that did not happen a lot, but I remember twice when I stopped the proceedings and we did not go forward that day, I made modifications so that the litigant was not put in a bad position, nor were the witnesses. But that was something that I was able to bring to the court because I spoke Spanish. Now, being able to speak Spanish isn't necessarily something that happens because you're racially or ethnic or diverse in ethnicity, but it is a type of diversity, especially in our community, where no one spoke a second language other than me. Secondly, by being a woman and a person of color on the bench, it made women and people of color more comfortable in coming forward and participating in the legal system. Whether or not my rulings were in their favor, they felt that the decisions I made were more fair. Studies have shown that a diverse court does make the court's decisions feel more fair to the litigants. Mary G. Wilson, who was a previous president of the League of Women Voters, has stated, communities that lack a diverse judiciary risk crisis of confidence among their citizens. Lack of diversity creates a perception that the courts may not be as fair or as impartial as they could be, and leads citizens to question the roles that the court play in their lives. I know that women have said that it is easier for them to testify in court when they're testifying about sexual assault or about domestic violence if they're testifying in front of a woman. In the 8th Judicial District, at least in Geary County, they had that opportunity, and I know that women told me and their attorneys told me that it did make a difference in their being comfortable in coming forward to court. A friend of mine who's an attorney and is also gay, we were talking about this, and I think she put it in a great way. She said, when people are in a group that include people like themselves, they feel safer and don't feel so apart from everyone else. And that's true. That feeling of inclusion is a byproduct of diversity, which allows people to have equal access to justice because people feel that they're being heard by someone who understands them and their experience, and so they're more willing to come forward and use the courts to hear their disputes and feel like the courts are considering their voice also. And finally, our courts are tasked with ensuring that everyone receives equal justice under the law. Diversity on the bench is critical to this task, promoting both the appearance and reality of a fair and impartial justice system. Those lines were taken from the 2019 study by the Brennan Justice Center on state Supreme Court diversity. Our courts should look like the communities that they serve. Geary County has a female population of about 47% and a population of other than white alone of about 34%. Before I became a judge, that community was served by a bench of 100% white males. My presence on the bench was a step in the direction of providing the appearance and the reality of a fair and impartial justice system. One of the things that I loved most about providing diversity on the bench was the fact that children, whether it was a young Hispanic child or a young girl, would see me and say, hey, she's like me and she's a judge. Or any child could see me and see that I was different than the other judges that were there on the bench and could say and think, she's different and she's a judge, I can be one too. I want to share two stories about a couple of things before I finish up. And one shows what my world was like without diversity, and the other one shows and reflects the really cool things about diversity. So the first one, I was at a judicial conference in 2012 in Overland Park. It was a state judicial conference. All judges are mandated to attend that conference every year. And my husband and I went. We got to the hotel, unloaded our luggage. My husband went to go park the car, and one of the young men that worked there struck up a conversation with me. I don't know if he was concierge or what he was, but he struck up a conversation with me and asked me if we were attending the conference. And I said, yes, we were. And he asked, wanted to know what I was going to be doing while my husband attended the conference. And when I told him, and this is 2012, when I told him that I was in fact the judge, he at least had the graciousness to look really, really embarrassed and find something else that needed his immediate attention. And it's really funny that, why would he think that my husband was the judge? My husband was very, very casually dressed in jeans and a shirt. I was wearing a suit, and I was holding a briefcase. Of course, he probably thought I was holding the briefcase for my husband. So then the next one, my second story, which I love this story, and I'm so glad that this happened and that I'm able to share this with you. A few months prior to my retirement, I was just wrapping up a morning session in my criminal court, and the courtroom was empty except for my secretary and me. We were just getting things put together before I went off the bench. And one of the public defenders pops her head into the courtroom and says, Judge, one of your youngest fans is outside and would like to meet you. Can she come in? I didn't know what she was talking about, and I said, sure, she can come in, of course. And in walks this little African-American girl. She must have been, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6. She was little, and she was with her mom. And her mom said that they had been to the courthouse Mom had some business there. And when they were walking out of judges' chambers down the hallway, there were some photographs of the judges that have served there. And the one that's closest to judges' chambers is a group photograph. And it's all of the judges, including me, that were seated at that time. And I was the only woman in the photo. And the little girl, the mom tells me the little girl asked her who that lady was in the photograph. And Mom said, I told her you were a judge. And Mom said the little girl climbed up on the bench and looked at the photograph and pointed at me and said, I'm going to be her one day. Okay? That was so cool. That's the upside. That's the upside of diversity. I can't tell you how thrilled that I was there to witness this and given the opportunity to meet this little girl and talk to her. And it was my picture that was hanging on the wall that made her want to be a judge, right? At least in that instant. And that's what diversity does, right? That's the power that diversity has. It shatters stereotypes. It breaks down barriers. I don't know if this little girl is ever going to be a judge. I told her, though, if she was, I would be there at her swearing in because they invite all us old judges back, so I would get an invitation there and I would be there. But I do know this, because I was a judge and she saw my photo of me wearing my judicial robes. She knew, not that she thought, she knew that she could be a judge too. That's why KSUnite is so important, and what you folks are doing here today is so important. You know, you have to keep asking yourself, why is diversity important to you? And what do you want to achieve with this? And what are you doing here today? I know that one of the prior speakers talked about how things haven't changed, but things have. Things have changed in you. Things have changed in everybody that's here in this room, because if you weren't wanting that change, you wouldn't be here. So you may not be able to say, those other people that aren't here today, they're not witnessing this, but you are, right? And that seed is planted in you. You take that seed out there. Don't, you know, we get really involved in things, and it's really easy for us to get real excited for one day, right? And then we're not excited anymore. And you can't do that if you want change. And I really believe this. I believe that this generation, you folks that are here, you can pick up and do the things that we were not able to do. This is a group of youngsters, of young people, you're not youngsters, you're young people, that are really, to me, you're youngsters, that are really excited about something, and you want to see real change. You have something that we didn't have, right? You have the internet, you have social media, and you have the ability to use those tools to get across all barriers and all oceans. So remember this feeling today. Remember this, take it back with you to your homes, take it back with you to your communities, take it with you when you leave Kansas State University. This is such an important thing that you're doing. Make diversity part of who you are now and part of the person that you want to be in the future. I am so, so very proud of you. I'm so proud of the things you're doing, and I am so proud and flattered that you asked me to participate in this day with you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. That's so nice of you. Thank you. I'd like now to announce our next speaker, Dr. Bryan Sandler, who's the Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer for Kansas State University.
Thank you, Your Honor. K-State family, I'm going to be real brief in the interest of time. I want to say two quick things. It's been said by President Meyers and echoed by several speakers here today that this is an investment, and it is an investment. And our students, faculty, and staff have said they wanted to see more in the way of cultural competence on this campus, right? And you have been heard. You have been heard. The university has honored that request and continues to honor that request every time we do something like KSUnite or any other diversity program and activity throughout the landscape of Kansas State University. You honor those efforts when you show up and when you attend and engage and participate in the things that we bring. So I thank all of you for being here today. The next thing I want to say, there are a number of breakout sessions that we are running just a little bit behind on. We'll figure out how to make that right, okay? 2 tracks, and there's signage out there that will tell you where those sessions will be held. All of them are here. And I also want to say President Meyers, Provost Tabor, Regent Harrison Lee, and this whole podium here, panel here, that we have every space in this union filled to capacity. I got a text a few moments ago, and it said the courtyard packed. The forum hall is filled to capacity. They had to open up Wildcat Chamber and still looking for space because people are here and they are participating. So enjoy the sessions. Last thing, there is a QR code that will help you get to an evaluation sheet to tell us about your experience, about the sessions that you attend, about this meeting here in the ballroom. You can let us know what worked, what didn't work, what we can do better. And I want to let you know that those evaluations are very important. Last year, the #1 complaint or concern about KSUnite was, the weather could have been better. Well, we got that right today. So having said that, I want to thank you all, and please enjoy the sessions.